Hey everyone, this lecture is on deontological ethics, and in particular we're going to cover Kant, or start covering Kant. And so this is part one of Kant's view, and this is the goodwill. Now we have to kind of unpack this idea quite a bit. So Kant's theory is kind of based on the goodwill, and in order to know what that is, we kind of have to tell you what it's not first. So he thinks that morality can't be based on consequences. So no consequentialist goods are intrinsically good, right? So anything like pleasure or anything of that sort, right? When you think about, what brings out the most pleasure is going to be the right action, that kind of view, or any consequentialist view, where you look at the results of an action to determine whether something is right or wrong, that can't be right. So his view is non-consequentialist or deontological. And so we have to kind of break down, what does he mean by good and goodwill, right? So first, it's intrinsically good. It's good for its own sake. So it's not good, it's not instrumentally or extrinsically good, right? So we talked about this in previous lectures, right? So remember, an example of something that is instrumentally or extrinsically good is money. Like, we don't love money for this. It's not good for the sake of itself. We love or cherish or we like or we think money is good because of what it can do, right? Buy us stuff, give us access or whatever, right? But intrinsically good is good for its own sake. So the goodwill has to be good in and of itself for its own sake. Okay. Well, how about the will part in goodwill? So we kind of have to go back a little bit, and the concept of the will is that it's a faculty or power, right? Think of we don't talk about it like this except like philosophers maybe, or maybe Marvel characters, but we have powers. Human beings have powers. Like, if you think about it, we have the power of sight, the power of hearing. We sometimes call those faculties of sight, faculty of hearing, things of that sort, right? The power of touch, Now, if we think about our language too, like the concept of the will as a power faculty, it's the power of faculty to be able to choose something, right? So we even have it like when we talk about the future, right? Like if someone says, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" And then you say, "I will go swimming after breakfast." Notice the will part, right? That is, you intend to do something in the future, right? That you will choose to do. Think of it that way, right? The will is now not just like a verb, I will do something, but it's a noun, right? It's a thing, it's a power that we have, and this power to choose something, right? So now we can kind of put together, well, yeah, and the goodwill is something like the ability to choose the good, right? Something like that. We're kind of going to go in pieces to define what Kant's definition of this idea is. Okay, so we're going to use Kant's terms. So he talked about what is intrinsically good and what he calls unqualified good, right? So an unqualified good is good unconditionally, good no matter what. So it's going to turn out the goodwill, that whatever is good has to be unqualifiably good, right? And the goodwill is the only thing that is unqualifiably good. Okay, now what's a qualified good? A qualified good is good for something, right? Good under certain conditions. So you may catch me if you ever take a class with me, at school, you'll always see me with a coffee cup, right? And then you may ask, well, is the coffee good? And I might say, it's good for cafeteria coffee. Right? Did you catch that? I'm qualifying it, right? I'm saying it's good coffee, but under the conditions, let's qualify it as for cafeteria coffee. It's not like, the best espresso from Italy, right? Right. So it's not unqualifiably good, the coffee. It's under the qualification that it's at school, it's good. So he's asked the question, what is good without qualification? And he says the goodwill. A goodwill is a will to do your duty for duty's sake. I'm going to repeat this several times so you kind of get the idea. A goodwill is something that you will do, the will to do the duty, not for any other sake, not for consequences, not for pleasure, not for, to listen to your mom, not to listen to God, none of those other things. You do it for duty's sake. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, we'll get to it. Let's discuss a little bit of his words. So this is what Kant says. Nothing can possibly be conceived in the world, or even out of it, which can be called good without qualification, except a goodwill. Okay. Now, why can't other good things be good without qualification? Why does it just have to be the goodwill, Professor Kant? Well, this is what he says. Intelligence, wit, judgment, and other talents of the mind, however they may be named, or courage, resolution, perseverance, as qualities of temperament, are undoubtedly good and desirable in many respects. But these gifts of nature may also become extremely bad and mischievous if the will which is to make use of them, and which therefore constitutes what is called character, is not good. Now, what is he saying? Is intelligence good? Yeah. Is wit good? Yeah. Is good judgment good? Yeah. Right? Is courage good? Resolution, perseverance? Yeah, these are all awesome, right? But think about it. Hitler had some of these things, right? Hitler was intelligent. Perhaps he had wit. Perhaps he had good judgment in, practical stuff, right? Did he have courage? Maybe. Resolution, perseverance? Yeah. Until the end, right? Now, notice that someone who has a bad will could have all these qualities, right? So these things, even though these are good things, are not good without qualification, right? We have to qualify. Only these things are good only if the person choosing the right action or has these characters, has what is called character, is good, right? So even these things can't be good without qualification. So what is a good will? Like, why does it choose duty? Like, what does that mean, right? Well, one idea is that the good will acts on the basis of universal considerations. What does that mean? That means it doesn't just think about yourself. It thinks about, like, everyone, right? So it's not influenced by subjective, particular determinations. So let's say the right thing to do is maybe even like costly to me. What's the right thing to do? So for example, like I remember I went to a store during Black Friday and it was super busy, and I was going to buy these pants, but at last minute I decided not to, but then they included it in my bag, and then when I got into my car, I was just looking for something in the bag, and they included those pants, and I didn't pay for it. Now, what's the right thing to do here, right? What would the goodwill do? Well, subjectively, according to me, right, I'm like, ooh, I should keep these pants, right? Well, it's good for me, right, because I don't have to pay for them. They're not going to catch me, right? However, I have to think about universal considerations, right? Everybody, right? The proper and inestimable worth of an absolutely good will consists just in this, that the principle of action is free from all influence of contingent grounds. And what does contingent grounds mean? It means grounds that just happen to be. It's just, would I think that getting something I did not pay for when I should have paid for is something that should apply to everyone all the time, right? And it should not be influenced just because this particular contingent grounds, this particular case that I was in. Okay, so what is the goodwill? A person has a goodwill, and his or her action has moral worth when he or she acts from duty out of respect for the moral law. Okay, that's a mouthful. That's a definition. So we're going to kind of break it down again. So we're kind of getting this idea of goodwill. We talked about that you do goodwill chooses duty for duty's sake, right? And that's he acts from duty, he or she acts from duty out of respect for this moral law. Now, what does that mean? Well, respecting the moral law, he thinks, is a rational thing to do. It's kind of like respecting the logical law. Now, what does that mean? Here's like an argument. It's this form of argument is so common. Logicians gave it a name. They call it modus ponens. Now, here's the argument. If whales are mammals, then they have lungs. Whales are mammals, therefore whales have lungs. This argument, if you accept 1 and 2, you must accept premise or the conclusion that whales have lungs. If you don't accept that, that means you're being completely illogical, right? This is one of the clearest forms of good reasoning. What does that mean? That is, if you respect the logical law, if you have 1 and 2, then you must accept 3. That is, if you are rational, then believing the premises compels you to believe the conclusion. Or if you don't believe in the conclusion, you are compelled to no longer believe in one of the premises. Okay? So, just like we respect the logical law, and if we accept 1 and 2, we accept number 3 here. Similarly, once we find out what the moral law is, it would be illogical or irrational of us not to believe that that's the right thing to do. That's how strong Kant believes that the moral law is. That's what it means to respect the moral law. That is what the goodwill does. The goodwill chooses duty for duty's sake, not because Mama told me, right? Not because it's written in the good book. Because reason itself tells us that's the thing to do. And that we would be irrational not to respect the moral law and follow it. That's how strong the moral law is, respecting it. Now, you're thinking, why, what's this respect? I don't respect the moral law, right? Aren't morals just things that, we learn from our parents or our teachers and things of that sort? Well, learning is one thing, but actually embracing and holding it to be true is another thing. So here are a couple pictures, right? I don't know if I know some of you are parents, and if you're not a parent, maybe some of you've had younger brothers or sisters, or you played with kids. If you play with little toddlers in the sandbox, and there are toddlers that don't know each other, at one point or another, there's going to be some hitting involved, right? That one kid's going to take the toy and the other kid's going to say, no, mine, and try to take it back, and the other kid's going to hit the other kid, right? And let's say you're a parent, and here, little Johnny hits, little James here, and you go to Johnny and say, Johnny, you shouldn't hit other people, right? You may even have to bribe Johnny. Okay, don't hit if you either bribe or you scare them, right? And the bribing part is if you are nice, then we can go out for ice cream or blah blah blah, right? Or if you don't do that, then we're going to have to go, right? There's a kind of carrot, or there's a bit of the stick, right? But what do you eventually want little Johnny to do? Do you want little Johnny to always think about, oh, it's because of ice cream that I'm not going to hit James? Oh, or do you want him to be like, oh, I don't want to be spanked, that's why I'm not going to hit James? No. Eventually, you would think, what you would want for Johnny is that you would want Johnny to go, you know what? I'm not going to hit James because that's the right thing to do. Wouldn't you want that for your toddler brother or your son? That's respecting the moral law, right? When you you choose the duty for duty's sake, not for any consequences, not for anything else. Okay. So we then have to ask the question, well, what makes this moral duty the moral duty in the first place, right? And I mentioned this before, and we're going to go more into this in the next lecture. But Kant's a rationalist, and he thinks that reason alone will determine moral duty. And so it's rational to respect the moral law. Well, we have to ask, well, what does it mean? How do you know reason? How does reason determine moral duty? Does reason give us like some sort of formula? And the thing is, yes. Kant's going to show us, and we'll get to this in the next lecture, how we can figure out what the moral law is. And if I have you at the seat of your, the edge of your seat, hold on, because the next lecture is going to blow your socks off. All right, I hope you had a good time. I'll see you online. Take care.